Welcome back, everyone, to the Wedge 52 Gridiron podcast. I'm your host, Wedge. Today's episode will mainly consist of the Week 1 Ravens recap. Before we jump in today, please make sure you press that follow button right here on Spotify. Tomorrow, I'll be releasing my league episode. So if you're a fan of other NFL teams besides the Ravens, that way you can tap in there. As well as check me out on Instagram at Wedge52Gridiron. So let's jump into the Ravens recap for Week 1. The Ravens beat the Houston Texans in a final score of 25-9. It was kind of an ugly game for both sides, especially the Ravens offense was a little bit stagnant to start off the season. I believe they went 3-and-out first possession, and then started very slow. Only 7 points in that first half of the game. But things started clicking a little bit there, in the second quarter especially. And then throughout, the second half, there's definitely flashes, some good things to see as a Ravens fan. You could expect, I for sure expected it, that the offense is going to start out slow, especially the guys who, didn't play preseason, which was most of them. But new offense, a lot of new pieces, new schemes under new offense coordinator Todd Monken. So just a lot of moving pieces, new things, fresher ideas and strategies. It's going to take a little bit of time to develop, just like anything worthwhile does. But that offense, just the weapons that, Baltimore finally has, certainly exciting to see. A couple of the new guys really showed out in their Ravens debuts. Mostly Zay Flowers, who Zay Flowers is going to be my Ravens offensive player of the week. Zay Flowers had 9 receptions for 78 yards, as well as 2 rushes for 9 yards on a little bit of a jet sweeps action. Zay is really... I know it's week 1, but we've seen it in preseason. We've seen it all of training camp. Zay Flowers looks to be a potential star in the making. And it's not just, the yards. His feet are always underneath him, which provides for him to be able to make those on a dime, precise cuts and, moves that we've seen him do, whether it be after the catch or on his routes. This week, Zay, he had 5 receptions on 3rd and or 4th down. That was tied for first in the league this week for the season so far. Week 1, obviously, here. And then 4 first downs, which was first in the league, his 4 first downs receptions there. And then also tied for first in the league with 4 forced missed tackles. So that was obviously, after the catch. He put on a nasty juke move against multiple guys. Put on a nice spin move on that second screen that he caught. It looks like Coach Monken is, especially at least in the Texans game, was kind of force-feeding Zay, with a couple of those screens, shorter passes, against one-on-one coverage like that. A whip route that he ran to the left. But I've seen a couple people saying, why is Monken doing that, forcing Zay? To be honest, I don't see a problem with it. If he's going to be one of your best players on the field after the quarterback, Lamar Jackson, you might as well force feed him. And then the more, if they continue to get Zay Flowers the ball, good things are going to happen. I mean, he had 78 yards in his NFL debut. That's more yards than Odell had this week, more yards than D-Hop had this week, more yards than Michael Thomas had this week. And those 3 names are very large, are, very well-known receivers who have had great careers. Obviously they're towards the end of their careers now or have dealt with injuries, but if Zay Flowers can do that, in his first game, in how he did it, the moves, the elusiveness that he provides at the wide receiver position for the Ravens, who have been looking for that for quite some time. You might as well give him the ball and see what can happen. And then, if he's going to be getting the ball, and still making defenses pay, the defense is going to be forced to adjust, whether that's, swinging another defender over the top in the safety, or if we're going to be running screens and short passes to Zay and just kind of getting him in open space, they're going to be forced to pull outside linebackers out of the box, potentially shift the inside guys, which then puts our rest of our offense into, the receivers and tight ends. They're going to be facing different coverages, more likely more single coverage or zone coverage, but the defenders' eyes, are not necessarily going to be in their direction, as well as, if the Ravens offense is able to develop and kind of get linebackers shifted, having, linebackers in the curl flat zone versus, if they're going to be on a seam zone, if they're making that adjustment and shifting over the insides, that opens angles for our offensive line and the rushing game. Some counterattacks if they're already overshifted, that can really open things up. So I think Munkins was feeling it out. Obviously, the Ravens were without Mark Andrews in week 1 against Houston on Sunday. And, I think that potentially played into it a little bit. But I think Todd Monken has a lot of different things that he's going to be trying out. This week was Zay. Next week could be Odell and Bateman. Could be Andrews if he, is healthy enough to go. I think Monken's trying to feel everything out, kind of see what he likes. And I really don't think we're going to see the full capabilities of the offense until weeks 10 or 11. I think, it's not going to be rusty or, lethargic, so to speak, like it was against the Texans game until week 10 or 11. That's not what I'm saying. But I still think there's going to be new layers, continuing to be added week by week, and more things unfolding. Or maybe things we're doing weeks 1 through 4, is going to be set up for things, later in the season or maybe in the playoffs. So, Monken did a great job, I think, getting the ball to him, and then running it when we get down in close, trusting the big guys, trusting the backs. So I'm satisfied with the performance. It was only week 1. Zay Flowers, Offensive Player of the Week. And then we might as well move over to my Defensive Player of the Week, since we're on this topic here. That's got to be none other than Roquan Smith. Roquan, we obviously know he is amazing. First team All-Pro. If I'm remembering correctly, he's been a stud. Was a stud for us last year. Really changed the look of our defense. Really, revitalized Patrick Queen's career. I mean, so to speak. Not to say that Queen's career was already in the garbage, because it was far from that. But the shift from, middle linebacker 1 to middle linebacker 2 has helped Queen tremendously and helped him flourish, which we'll talk more about him in a couple minutes here. But Roquan Smith against the Texans had 16 total tackles, 1 sack, and 2 tackles for a loss. A spectacular performance. Set a record for most tackles in a week 1 game for the Ravens, franchise record, that is. And that's some pretty good, record to break, considering the long history of Ravens defensive stars, like Ray Lewis, for example. So good on Roquan Smith. And he, those are the stats. The stats, put up, raise the eyebrows. Very good numbers, but as well as Roquan just kind of being that captain of the defense and, really just hyping up his guys, getting them in the right position, and like I said, giving Patrick Queen the opportunity to do what he does best. The duo of Roquan and Patrick Queen was absolutely phenomenal the whole game against the Texans, and that's definitely something that is going to be very nice to see that continue throughout this season. Kind of help cover up a little bit of our potential weakness at the cornerback position, which I'll talk about. Actually did not look as bad as it could. The receivers for the Texans are not ultra dominant like some of the teams we're going to see, but very solid performance from them. But Queen himself had 11 tackles, 1 sack, and 1 tackle for a loss. And one of his sacks was, his sack was at a very critical time. I want to say it was third and medium, and he sacked C.J. Stroud to push them deep out of into a long field goal range instead of on the cusp of potentially going for it on a 4th and short or 4th and medium if they didn't gain any yards. So great play by Roquan and Patrick Queen. Roquan Smith was my defensive player of the week. Really no surprises there, I would say, from either side of the ball. On that one, kind of keeping up with the defensive theme a little bit here. Ronald Darby, in his first game as a Raven, played very well. I was impressed with his debut. He kind of seemed to be all over the field. He had 7 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, and 1 pass defense. He played very well. He got the start, one of the 2 corner starts, since Marlon Humphrey was unable to go with that foot injury that he received surgery for in training camp. The defense was strong in general. Only allowed 9 total points. The Texans got into the red zone. Did not allow a touchdown to them. Just the 3 field goals. I believe they got it only into the red zone that one trip. The others, the defense kind of locked up right outside, a first down away from, what the red zone is, being that 20 yards and in portion of the field. So it's great performance by the Ravens defense. Definitely kept us in it, helped out the offense this week, who was a little bit rusty. They got a lot of moving pieces, new schemes, like I mentioned. But on that offensive side, Odell Beckham Jr., he's back. Didn't have a crazy stat line, but that's like Odell is going to give you more than that. Earlier in the game, first half, I believe, could have been third quarter. But Odell Beckham drew a pass interference flag at about the 5-yard line, 4-yard line. On that, put the Ravens in position for one of their 3 rushing touchdowns. So that was good. And then Odell had, his first catch, a standard catch. He showed lots of emotion. Can only imagine how he feels to be back. You can definitely see his love for the game. And, Baltimore gave the love back to him. The fans were very loud, even chanting OBJ after his first catch. And then Odell made this spectacular over-the-shoulder sliding/diving type of catch up on the left side of the field for about 25-30 yards catch. Nicely thrown ball by Lamar. Odell had the defender on his back with the safety rolling over the top. And Odell made a spectacular play, just like Odell Beckham Jr. is known to do, and what his fans and what hopefully now Ravens fans will love, to continue to see. So good for him. It was definitely nice to see. And, there's a lot of question marks about how much Odell is going to be, worked into NFL season, or, if he's going to be having limited snaps to try and preserve his health. He's had a year and a half of training and rehab and just getting his body in the best potential shape. He's told everyone that. He firmly believes that. I think the Ravens believe that. And it kind of showed on Sunday. Odell played 92% of Ravens' offensive snaps, which was the most out of the Ravens wide receivers. So, a couple things that the Ravens kind of need to work on heading into the rest of the season, especially this next week here. Very important matchup against the division rival. Kind of new rival. The Steelers are for sure our biggest rival, our all-time rival. Everyone knows that. But the Bengals, have recently been, there's been that little bit more of a feud going on there. The Ravens, head to Cincinnati for week 2 next Sunday here. But one thing they need to clean up, 13 penalties by the Ravens for a total of 106 yards. It works week 1 of the season against a team like the Texans, but you cannot be giving a contender type of team, a solid playoff team, 100 free yards a game. It's not a recipe for success. And so they definitely have to clean that up. And most of those were on the offensive side of the ball, whether that be holding. And then another thing that they have to clean up is Lamar was under pressure all day long. I didn't really, I don't know the exact number of pressures that Lamar was on, but, if you just look up highlights, even in the highlights of, the good plays Lamar is making, he's under pressure. So that definitely needs to be cleaned up, and definitely a little bit of a concern now that 2 of our starting offensive linemen are considered week to week with injuries, which I'll talk about in a second here. But Lamar was sacked 4 times, under pressure a bunch more. So offensive line definitely has some work to do. Those kind of things will come with time, hopefully. If not, we're going to see a whole lot of Lamar doing Lamar things. But that's obviously not the scripted game plan of, our offensive lineman to let our quarterback get pressured and then he has to run around and, do that. So that definitely needs to be cleaned up. Speaking of pressures, one thing I did see I'd like to mention, one of our potential weaknesses for our team, is our edge rush. They actually looked very solid. Clowney played a good percentage of snaps. Ojabo played a good percentage of snaps. Owe played a good percentage of snaps. David Ojabo had a strip sack, which was good to see out of him. Hopefully he can get a good, healthy, he didn't play last year or much of anything last year. And then Odafe Owe, I don't think he got to C.J. Stroud on Sunday, unless I'm forgetting. But he did have 7 pressures against C.J. Stroud, 4 of which were quarterback hits. So I did see that was tied for second amongst the league up to this point. Pending that the Bills-Jets ending here as I'm recording the night before. But he had 7 pressures. That tied a couple of players, one of which being star defensive end Aiden Hutchinson, and trailing just 2 players with one of the Titans edge rushers had 8. One of them had 7. I forget which one was which. But then I believe Nakobe Dean, I want to say, from the Eagles had 8 as well. So very nice game by Odafe Owe. Definitely excited, hopeful that Owe and Ojabo can, as well as Clowney, once he gets worked in fully, hopefully they can be solid edge presence to kind of, lessen that, or just help. That would really benefit the team if they can be solid and play like that the entire season. So moving on to a little bit of those injuries, like I mentioned. Safety, Marcus Williams, it looks like has a partially torn pec and is set to miss several weeks. From what I hear and have read up about the injury, that is very dependent on how the surgery goes and how large, the tear is, and what kind of the swelling looks like around that chest area. Last year, TJ Watt, that's the injury that TJ Watt dealt with, was a partial pec tear. He definitely didn't miss the whole season. I didn't look at the exact weeks that he played, but I want to say that happened in week 2, and TJ Watt came back week 13 or 14 approximately. Not great news for Marcus Williams, who missed half of last season or so with an injury as well, but better than a season-ending injury. J.K. Dobbins, unfortunately, tore his Achilles. He will be having surgery, and he will be done for a year. And Achilles is one of the longer recovery times out of injuries. It's about 10 to 13 months long for most players with that injury. Ronnie Stanley went down. He's been diagnosed with a knee sprain in his right knee. So he is considered week to week. My guess is, with Ronnie Stanley's injury history, especially with his knees, my guess is he does not play this next Sunday versus the Cincinnati Bengals. And then Tyler Linderbaum has a sprained ankle, and he is also considered week to week. That one, I'm not sure if he'll play. I'm not sure the chances. That one will kind of just be a feel it out, see how it feels each day. Most likely, Linderbaum will be more of a game time decision than Ronnie Stanley is. If they are unable to go, left tackle will be Pat McCarry, most likely, who is the one who came in for Ronnie Stanley. McCarry's been solid throughout his career, not great. I believe this is the 3rd or 4th position now that Pat McCarry's had to slide around and play. So hopefully he's getting a lot of reps this week. Hopefully he can protect that backside from Lamar, or at least be serviceable. And, maybe we give him a tight end to help chip on, deeper drop backs or, play action to help out Lamar and that passing attack. At the center position will be a player that we signed this offseason, Sam Mustaver. We signed him, former Chicago Bear, I believe. We signed him this offseason, cut him with the handshake deal, and signed him to the practice squad. And luckily, he was activated for the game against the Texans, who he had to play a couple series after Linderbaum went down. So those will be the guys if Stanley and Linderbaum are unable to go. Also this week, looking ahead towards next Sunday versus the Cincinnati Bengals, Marlon Humphrey says he has coaches, and Marlon say there's a chance he plays. Certainly would be very beneficial to the Ravens. I'm sure every single Ravens fan wants Marlon Humphrey to play, myself included. He would definitely help, guard the elite, not last week, but elite wide receiver duo of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. So we'll see if he's good to go. I would say probably a 50-50 shot. Right now, just kind of how things are going. I got a feeling I would lean towards Marlon Humphrey being inactive again this Sunday. That's just what my gut feeling is at the moment. And then Mark Andrews, who was finally released, was dealing with a quad injury. He was unable to go last Sunday versus the Houston Texans. He also has a shot to play this week. Coach Harbaugh did not give much information in his press conference. But my guess and my hope is that Andrews will be good to go. Potentially see slightly less snaps than he normally would. But I think that's my prediction for it. Obviously, we will see what happens the rest of the week here leading up to the Bengals game. My prediction, though, is Stanley out, Linderbaum probably out, Humphrey out, Andrews in. And now, kind of looking at specifically this Bengals-Ravens game, kind of a couple key things that kind of stood out to me. What I think the Ravens' game plan should kind of look like, and what the Ravens need to do to find themselves with the win this Sunday. First, for any of you who didn't see, the Browns whooped up on the Bengals 24-3, which was a very big shocker to me. I picked the Bengals to win that game. If you guys listened to my NFL is Back episode, last episode I released, you guys would have heard that. So go check that out. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow for the entire league-wide episode, which will have, some information, some knowledge, some reactions, thoughts, as well as my picks for this upcoming week. But, Bengals got spanked, and the Bengals did not look good on either side of the ball. Most specifically, their offense looked quite horrendous. Joe Burrow, who just signed to be the highest paid annual player ever, he put up a whopping 82 passing yards in that game. First game being the highest paid player ever. And Jamar Chase had 39 of those 82 yards, and T. Higgins did not catch a pass. Joe Mixon had 57 yards on the ground and 17 receiving. So just a full, complete, all-around lackluster performance by the Cincinnati Bengals on offense. I definitely do not expect this to be the theme throughout the year. It's going to be very interesting to kind of see how they respond. My guess is they're going to come back with a vengeance. They're definitely going to be upset with their Week 1 performance. So the Ravens defense needs to be ready. Like I said, if that defense can stand strong, no doubt in my mind about Roquan, and Patrick Queen, until he proves me otherwise. I'm riding with Patrick Queen this season as middle linebacker too. So no doubt really with Roquan and Patrick Queen. It'd be nice to see Matabuke have another great game. He had a nice sack last Sunday, as well as, like I mentioned, if the combination of Ojabo, Owe, and Clowney can apply pressure again, I think that'll definitely be good. Kind of keep, not that Joe Burrow, has shown that he succumbs to pressure or, is unable to perform under pressure. Not like pressure of a big game, but under pressure, literally, like the statistic. I do think that it will have an effect on him, especially after last week and his poor performance there. So I think as much as we can get in his face, that'll help us out, as well as help out our secondary, mostly our cornerbacks, help them out, kind of, cover our own weakness a little bit as much as we can there. Although Ronald Darby had a very good game, Brandon Stevens had a very good game, so and potentially, we could definitely see Marlon Humphrey play this week. My gut's telling me he doesn't, but I would love it if Marlon Humphrey was in. That would definitely help us out, and even if it's for a little bit more limited, snap counts there. The Bengals only had 6 first downs last week, and they were 2 for 15 on third downs. I don't know the average distance of their third downs, and to goes, like third and however many. I don't know the average distance, but 2 for 15 is not good. If the Ravens defense can replicate that third down success that the Cleveland Browns found, that would put our team in a very good position to win. And then kind of looking at, the Bengals defense and, what that kind of looked like. They gave up 206 yards on the ground, which is a lot. Browns have, one of the better rushing attacks the past couple of years. Right there with the Ravens, right there with the Bears. Those three teams on the ground have been very, very good the past couple of seasons. I know J.K. Dobbins just got hurt. Is done for the year. And, Dobbins, was having a heck of a game up to that point. Had a nice run down the sideline, as well as a nice diving, over the top for the touchdown, over the top by the pylon over there. Dobbins was having a nice game. It's real unfortunate. But, with that next man up mentality, like the players always say, the coaches always say, Justice Hill, while most of his carries, he had 8 carries, I think, for 9 yards, 2 touchdowns. His 2 carries, obviously if we can get close to the end zone and Justice Hill can do his thing and find that hole, that works. Put points on the board whichever way it happens. On that second touchdown run, though, Justice Hill did have very nice jump cut, and it didn't matter because it was on the goal line. The ball probably already crossed, but did have a nice spin off of that second defender. So Justice Hill would have still been on his feet had he have needed to there. I think Justice Hill is definitely underrated. And then we still have Gus Edwards, who had a couple of nice carries on Sunday against the Texans. We called up Melvin Gordon from the practice squad, so we'll see if he's active this week. My guess is he most likely will be as a RB3. Worst case scenario, one of our other 2 guys gets hurt. And then Keaton Mitchell looked very good in preseason. He's on the 4-week IR, so he'll miss a couple more weeks. But in terms of the season, it looks good. I'm hoping that the Ravens' rush attack can, if they can expose that Bengals defense, just like the Browns did, they're going to be in a very good position. Obviously, we're going to throw the ball a lot more than we have in years past, but it's about the rushing efficiency there. If we can kind of exploit that, on critical third downs, on, a fourth down if needed, or on a surprise on a first down, or not really a surprise, but on a first down, get ahead of the sticks. Maybe we get 8 or 9 yards on a first down. That allows us to, take a shot or try something that we want to, test out for later in the game on a second and short, rather than, it's 2nd and 5 or 6 or 7. We need to get another chunk of yards before we can kind of play around with it. So that's all I have for this episode. If you guys made it this far, I appreciate you all listening. Once again, drop a follow right here on Spotify. Rate the podcast. And then check out the Instagram. Follow me there at Wedge52Gridiron. And let me know your thoughts on the episode. Thank you very much. Go Ravens.